Did you know there is a house that has been standing for over a century, where every owner either vanished, went mad, or took their own life, and yet not a single sound has ever been heard from inside it? No footsteps, no whispers, not even the sound of breath. Locals call it the Mute House of Greystone Road, but according to those who've dared to step inside, the silence isn't empty, it's alive. On the outskirts of Kellington County, deep in the heart of rural England, stands an abandoned Victorian manor swallowed by fog and ivy. Its windows are black, its roof half collapsed, yet somehow it refuses to fall. No birds fly over it, no animals go near it, even the wind dies when it passes the iron gates. The house once belonged to the Whitby family, a wealthy lineage known for their strange obsessions with spiritualism and death. In the late 1800s, Jonathan Whitby, the last surviving heir, became fixated on summoning spirits after the mysterious death of his wife Eleanor. He built the house not as a home but as a vessel, an ear for the afterlife. Its walls were layered with lead to trap vibrations. The ceilings curved inward to amplify resonance. Every hallway was mathematically measured to form perfect acoustic voids. It was a house built to listen, but according to legend, something started listening back. Whitby's journals, later recovered in fragments, describe his early experiments. He claimed to record voices from the veil, whispers too soft for the human ear, but visible as movements on candle flames and dust motes. He spent nights sitting alone in the great hall, surrounded by tuning forks and glass jars filled with ash, calling out into the silence, "If the dead can hear us, let them answer." And they did, not in sound, but in touch. Objects shifted, doors opened. Candles bent their flames toward him like breath. Whitby wrote that he felt fingers of air against his face, gentle at first, then pressing harder, shaping words against his skin. "She is still here," he scrawled, "but she cannot speak. She wants her voice back." Soon after, Whitby stopped writing altogether. In 1897, the housekeeper, a woman named Margaret Dunn, was found dead in the study. She was sitting upright in a chair, eyes wide open, mouth stretched in a silent scream. The doctor who examined her found no wounds, but her eardrums had burst. The cause of death was listed as internal auditory trauma, though no one could explain how such damage could occur in complete silence. Whitby himself vanished weeks later. The servants fled, claiming to see his shadow walking through the halls long after he'd gone missing. When the police investigated, they found strange markings burned into the walls, concentric circles etched in ash, and a line carved into the floorboards. "She is louder than silence." The house stayed empty for 40 years. Then, in 1938, a family named Hollister moved in, unaware of its history. They lasted 3 months. Neighbors reported that the Hollisters rarely came outside. At night, faint lights glowed in the windows, slow, pulsing, like a heartbeat. Then one morning, the mailman found the front door wide open. Inside, the dining table was set for 4, the food untouched. No one was there. On the wall above the fireplace, someone had written in soot, "Listen close, she's beneath the floor." In 1972, a paranormal researcher named Dr. Alistair Cray entered the Mute House with modern recording devices. He set up microphones in every room, hoping to capture evidence of supernatural sound. What he found was worse. The equipment recorded negative frequencies, frequencies that removed sound from the environment instead of adding it. Cray described the silence as physical, oppressive, like standing underwater. In his final log, recovered from a damaged tape, he says, "Something moved in the silence. It brushed my shoulder. I felt breath but not air. I think it's learning to speak." He was found outside the house 3 days later, crawling through the dirt, deaf and blind. The doctors said his inner ears had collapsed inward, as though pulled by suction. He died whispering one word, "Eleanor." The locals began to believe the entity haunting the house was Eleanor Whitby herself, Jonathan's dead wife. But others whispered something darker, that Jonathan had succeeded in creating a bridge between worlds. But what came through was not his wife, a being trapped between silence and sound, a witch of absence. The town historian found fragments of a forgotten legend tied to the land. A woman executed in 1666 for using her voice to steal breath. She was called the Silenced Mother. They cut out her tongue before burning her alive. It said her final scream never stopped. It just kept stretching thinner and thinner until it became silence itself. The Whitby house was built directly on the site of her grave. In 2001, the property was purchased by a tech entrepreneur, Michael Rains, who wanted to debunk the haunting. He installed surveillance cameras and sound sensors across the estate and live-streamed the experiment for a week. On the fourth night, the stream went dark, but viewers who replayed the footage reported something strange. At exactly 2:19 a.m., every microphone registered minus decibels. Then, just before the blackout, the last visible frame showed Rains standing in the hallway, mouth open in terror, and behind him, a human-shaped void, a distortion bending the air. When authorities entered days later, they found the house empty. Rains' car was still parked outside. His body was never found. However, all 67 microphones were discovered crushed into their casings from the inside. In 2019, a small film crew from a paranormal YouTube channel entered the Mute House. Their goal, a 24-hour live investigation. They didn't last 5. The footage that remains, recovered from a corrupted drive, shows 4 people sitting in the main hall. They speak in whispers. One of them laughs nervously. Then the audio begins to fade. Not static, just gone. The group's lips move, but there's no sound. The lights flicker. Then one by one, each person's face turns toward something off camera. Their mouths open, wide. But still, no sound comes out. One man reaches for his ear, blood running from it. The camera drops to the floor. The final frame shows a faint reflection in the cracked lens. A woman in a black dress standing behind them, her mouth sewn shut. The government has since sealed the property, but locals swear they still see lights moving behind the boarded windows. Some claim to hear faint vibrations in their bones when they pass by the gate. Not sound, but pressure. Others say if you stand close enough, you'll hear a heartbeat. Yours, and something else's. And every few months, someone breaks in. None of them come back. But one phone, recovered in 2023, was found still recording. The screen showed the grand staircase. The sound file was almost entirely silent, except for a single word whispered at the end. Hush. Acousticians who studied the remains of the structure discovered something terrifying. The architecture of the Mute House creates perfect standing silence. Every frequency that enters cancels itself. Every vibration dies. Every voice disappears. In essence, the house itself isn't haunted, it is the haunting. A massive acoustic curse built on death and grief, feeding on vibration. And every time someone speaks inside it, they give it exactly what it wants, a voice to consume. In 2024, construction workers attempting to demolish the house reported hearing something beneath the floorboards, a rhythmic thudding, like someone knocking from below. When they tore up the boards, they found nothing. But that night, one of the workers' wives received a voice message from his phone. 27 seconds of silence. At the end, a woman's voice whispered, "He's with me now." The worker's body was never found. Today, no one goes near the property. Even GPS devices glitch when approaching the coordinates. It's as if the air refuses to carry sound there. Locals say if you listen closely at night, you can hear the absence, the kind of silence that hurts. And if you whisper a name inside that silence, the house might whisper it back. And so, the legend of the Mute House continues. A house that does not echo because it already is the echo. A house where the Witch of Silence still waits, listening, and learning how to scream again.